Okay. Today is the 9th class of our philosophy seminar, and we're going to discuss two subjects. One is the overflow of tendencies, how tendencies develop and then evolve in our lives. And secondly, the obstacles to spiritual growth as defined by Patanjali, and some solutions to those obstacles. I remind you that all of this material is written in the book Universal Philosophy, so that you can always refer to that book in order to reaffirm what we're saying. Look at the page that I've given you. We see that Patanjali in Book 4, Sutra number 9, makes the following statement. There is the relationship of the cause and effect, even though separated by class, locality, and time, because memory and impressions are in the same form. What is he talking about here? He's talking about that the law of karma, that is, there is a cause and there is an effect. Even if the effect appears when we exist in another class, in another locality, another time, in another incarnation. So what he's saying here is that whatever we do, we re-experience, that everything that we are experiencing today is a result of previous thoughts, words, and actions, even if those thoughts, words, and actions were made when we existed in another class, another caste, another social state, in another time, and in another locality, because the memories and the impressions are in the same form. These are the memories or impressions which exist in the causal body. So that we have the causal body as a common source between all incarnations, in which the tendencies which exist in the causal body are then projected into the personality, into our daily life today, and that many of these tendencies we have developed in the past, also in previous incarnations. Now, in Sutra number 2 of the 4th book, of the 4th chapter, he says, the transformation from one species or kind to another is by the overflow of natural tendencies and potentialities. So what he's saying here is that all of the further evolutionary states exist in the preliminary as tendencies. That is, man existed as a potentiality in the amoeba, or in the birds, or in the reptiles, or in the primates. That man was a potentiality in them, and that our divine self, that is, our superhuman self, is a potentiality within us at this point. So that everything that further is developed in the evolutionary process existed as a potential in the previous state. For example, in the almond seed is the potentiality of the almond tree. In the ovum of the mother and the sperm of the father is the potentiality of a human being which will live so many years and do so many things in their lives. So in the seed, or in the previous state, exists the potentiality, the possibility of the new and the evolved state. And that we are all in this evolutionary process. Then he goes on in Sutra number 3 to say that a substance or being, it shouldn't be of, or being, may have many potentialities to become many things. The apparent cause only removes the obstacle like a farmer irrigating a field. Now, what is he saying? He's saying two things here. That there are many potentialities. We have many possible futures. This is something that Seth also speaks about. Each of us has many possible futures before us, and we can choose. Every time that we choose a certain way of thinking, a certain way of functioning, we connect with a different possible future. Every choice we make in life creates a new possible or a different possible future. So that we have many possibilities open to us. And the second is that the cause of transformation is not what happens in the external world. It's not a technique which we employ. The cause is our inner self. For example, he uses the example of the farmer who, I don't know if you know the old way of farming, but there are these little channels, and what the farmer has done, he's putting earth in the beginning of the channel so the water doesn't go down. And he makes the water go in various directions by creating obstacles and removing obstacles, so that the water flows in this direction or in another direction, according to where he has placed the obstacles. So the cause of the water coming is not the removing of the obstacle. It's the fact that the water exists, that the water is there, that there is a reservoir of this water waiting to run, so that sometimes we attribute a great change in our life to some technique that we have done. But the real cause is that there is within us, waiting for manifestation, for development, this whole potential self. And that meditation or techniques or analysis, whatever we may employ, or even someone else's helping us in some way, all of these only remove the obstacle. This is why, for example, I say that we don't develop love. Love is our nature, and we just remove the obstacles towards love, which is basically fear and ignorance. So all of these powers and these qualities already exist within us as water already exists in the reservoir. It's just that the flow of the water and the flow of the love and the flow of the wisdom which is in us is obstructed by ignorance and fear and various other obstacles. So let us discuss these obstacles. Now, in Patanjali's first chapter, the 30th Sutra, he makes the following statements. Disease, physical laziness, doubt, carelessness, mental laziness, craving for sense pleasure, false perception, despair caused by failure, and unsteadiness. These distract the mind and are obstacles to spiritual progress. These distractions are accompanied by grief, despondency, trembling of the body, and irregular breathing. So he's telling us here the 9 basic obstacles towards the spiritual growth process. Let's look at each of these and see what causes them and see what we can do to overcome them. Let's start with disease. When the body is ill, it draws the mind towards it. And so the mind becomes focused on the body. It's natural, it's useful, because this way the mind can heal the body and can do whatever it needs to do internally or externally to create health again. But also this takes the mind away from the real purpose of life, which is the spiritual growth process. And the mind can become totally imprisoned in focusing on the body. One can become a hypochondriac, in which one is always thinking about the body, always, dealing with the body. Whereas if one dealt with one's spiritual growth process, the body would be healed by itself. As one did what one needed to do to free himself or herself from negative thinking and from self-destructive tendencies, then the body would automatically be healed. Also, an ill body, unless it's a very advanced, spiritually advanced person, has a difficulty in containing positive thoughts and truths. It's a different vibration. So when the body is not well, for most people, not for all people, some people are able to sustain positive thoughts and truths in an ill body. Otherwise, it's difficult. There is a negativity associated with illness which is not compatible with positive thinking and having spiritual truths in our mind. There are, however, people that are able to overcome this obstacle. So also, an ill body then leads towards negative thinking processes. We become negative in our thinking. What can we do? We can employ a daily program of exercise, breathing, relaxation, pure diet and fasting, along with positive thinking, and this will create, in general, healthy energy in the body, which will gradually heal the body. So the yogis developed the process, the asanas, the yoga techniques, so that the body would not be an obstacle to spiritual evolution. I mean, there is no real essential value in health except that it allows the soul to evolve more easily. Otherwise, we're going to die anyway. Well, you can eat as purely as you like. You can exercise all day long. You're still going to die. So the only real value in creating health, actually, is that I create an inner environment in which my mind is clearer and I can evolve more effectively, because the only purpose of life is evolution. There's no other real purpose in existing. And when we sacrifice evolution because we're so obsessed with existing and not dying, or cannot face the idea of death, then we're losing the whole purpose of life, actually. The second obstacle, let us combine with the fifth: physical and mental laziness. Now what happens? What is the cause of this? One is the very nature of the physical universe. The very nature of the physical universe is called inertia. It's a basic law of nature that any object, and will include now being, tends to remain in the state that it is in. So if I'm stationary, I tend to remain stationary. It takes effort. It takes much more gas for a car to get going 80 kilometers an hour than it does to go 80 kilometers an hour. You see? You need very little gas to keep it going, but you need a lot of gas to get it up to that. So we are basically beings of inertia, and it requires more energy to make a change than to sustain a change. And so that is one basic cause of laziness. It's the nature of the universe. Another cause is a weak pranic body, a weak energy body. That is, we don't have enough energy in our system. Maybe because we were born with a weak energy body because of the way we have lived past lives, or maybe because we don't eat well, or maybe because we have certain emotions which are consuming our energy all day long, or in general we're not living our lives in a way which supports and which helps our energy body. Another reason would be that we have no purpose in life, no motive. This is very important. Even a very materialistic motive can give a tremendous amount of energy to a person. I mean, we know of women that have lifted cars to save their children. We see that there are people who have no spiritual contact, but because they really desire a lot of money or a lot of success in the world, they basically don't even need to sleep. They generate energy from their desire. The desire for money, the desire for success, or for anything in the world becomes a constant source which generates energy. So A person who is lacking in energy, who is lazy physically or mentally, perhaps has not found his motivation, his goal, something which stimulates him towards being productive in life and not being lazy. Also, it could be the result of a lack of nutrients. There could be vitamins which are lacking, minerals which are lacking, either due to a poor diet or due to the lack of vitamins and minerals in food today, because they are grown in a very artificial way. Also, this laziness, physical or mental, can be the result of emotional blockage, that is, the fear of failure, the fear of not succeeding. So anyone that fears not succeeding can appear lazy, but really what they're doing is they're afraid to make the effort, because if they fail, then they will not be able to accept themselves. Whereas if they don't make the effort, there's no failure. You can't fail if you don't try. So just don't try so you don't fail, you see. So also fear of failure, lack of self-confidence, lack of self-acceptance can also be a cause for physical or mental laziness. So what can we do? First of all, we can employ all that we mentioned already about disease, that is, daily exercise, breathing, meditation techniques, relaxation techniques, eating raw food as much as possible, live food, because live food gives a live energy. Dead food is without energy. It's without prana. So as much as possible, eating the food alive. But more important here, I would say, is finding a life purpose. Finding something which stimulates me and which is important for me. Finding what is important. I had an interview with a woman today who was probably about 40 years old, feeling depression. Nothing makes her happy, she says, at this point in her life. Everything seems dull. And in discussing, we realized that until now in her life, she has done everything because she had to do it. Because this is what she was supposed to do. This is what a good person would do. This is what a person who wants acceptance from other people would do. And so everything was done with a sense of duty or pressure. And she had virtually become disconnected from her inner voice as to what she wanted to do. She became the perfect wife, the perfect worker, the perfect helper, the perfect person in society. But now she's going through a crisis that I don't want to do anything. Nothing gives me joy. So I suggest to you, you go 1 week without any program, and every moment you do only what you want to do in that moment. You want to sleep 10 hours? Sleep 20 hours. You want to get up? You want to walk? You don't want to walk? You want to meditate? You don't want to meditate? You want to dance? You don't want to dance? So just get in touch with what you want. So a person who is lazy, physically or mentally, may not have contact with what they want because they're not being stimulated from inside. They have become dependent on external stimulation, and now that external stimulation represents to them a source of suppression, a lack of freedom, some kind of discipline, or it's just not connected with what they really want in life. On the other hand, any kind of tapas may also help in this situation. That is, getting the motor started. As we said, it takes more energy to get something started than to keep it going. So on the other hand, one could do the opposite. One could say, I'm going to make a discipline, and I'm going to keep this program. And then, as they say in Greek, when you start to eat, then your appetite comes. You start to grow, appetite grows. So by doing something, I start to enjoy the doing, and the motor starts working. The third obstacle, according to Patanjali, is doubt. Now, doubt about what? Doubt about the goal. I mean, is there really anything? Is there really spiritual evolution? Doubt about the truths that we are learning. Am I really a soul? Or is all this just an illusion? doubt about the methods that I'm employing. Maybe there's another method which is more effective or quicker or easier. Everyone wants the quicker and the easier. And of course, if you have to pay more for it, doesn't matter. Doubt about the existence of God. Doubt about my own ability to succeed in this path. Because when I doubt that I'm going to succeed at something, what do? I stop trying. So doubt is a major obstacle on the spiritual path. What are some of the causes of doubt? One is that the environment is not very conducive to faith. I mean, our whole environment, TV, newspapers, magazines, society, does not encourage the idea of spiritual evolution. No medals are given for spiritual evolution. No acknowledgement is given for spiritual evolution. Society is basically giving us the message that what is important in life is how much money you make, how famous you become, how many material objects you accumulate, and has nothing to do with your honesty, with how loving you are. These are not important. Okay. So one thing is the environment is not conducive to faith. Also, we don't have very many examples. We don't have examples of people who have said, I am putting above everything else my conscience and my spiritual evolution. We don't even see the priests doing it. We don't see the politicians doing it. We don't see our teachers doing it. We don't see our parents doing it. So we don't really have any examples of people who are saying, I am putting above my economic situation. I am putting above what other people think about me. I'm putting above my pleasures and my needs, my conscience, and my spiritual process. And as we said yesterday in the class, why should I be the only one? Why should I pay taxes if no one else is going to pay taxes? Why should I pay to get a license to build my house if no one else is paying to get a license to build their house? Am I the stupid one? You see, and so there is this, that the whole society does not support faith in this goal. Another aspect is that the goal itself is very intangible. It's not something that we can see as we can see our hand, or see a car as a goal, or see a house as a goal. We don't see God. We don't see the evolution taking place in our minds so easily. And so the goal is intangible. It's a metaphysical goal. It's a goal beyond what we can perceive. So these make doubt very easy. Besides the fact that we have been born, we have learned in childhood to doubt ourselves. I mean, the basic message we got in childhood is, you don't know, we know. You must listen to us. You don't know what to eat. You don't know how to dress. You don't know how to choose your friends. You don't know who to marry. You don't know what to study. You don't know what to do with your life. So the basic message we get from society is that we don't know. And so we learn very much to doubt what is so obvious to us in life. What is the result of doubt? The energy is divided. Okay, I say, well, I want spiritual growth, but in case that's not true, I need to have these other security bases. I want to be okay with my conscience, I want to go ahead, but I need to have also some kind of support in the material world. Okay. Secondly, I must chase after various sources of security in my life. Thirdly, I will not make the necessary effort. I mean, if I doubt the goal, if I doubt the possibility of success, why waste my energy on it? Why meditate? Why try to be honest and truthful? Why help other people? So doubt makes us lessen our effort. And it's much easier to get sidetracked. It's much easier to be taken away from the clarity of I want this in my life. This is my purpose in life. This is what I want to create and do. And it's much easier to get sidetracked by other interests and needs. So what can we do about doubt? First of all, we can study the scriptures of the particular religion in which we were born, and also the scriptures of other religions, because studying the various religions helps us to realize that they agree on 95% of everything. And so seeing the agreement between religions allows us to even be even more sure that it's true. Now the religions themselves would have us believe that they differ very much, but this is just a game that they play in order to keep their followers. I mean, they would not like us to know that the others believe just about the same thing. This is not in their interest. Okay? Secondly, we can keep company with those who believe, because we are affected by what other people believe and think. It's good to create a group of people. This is called satsang. Sat means truth. Sang means group. To belong to a group seeking the truth. And this group should meet once a week, as we are meeting here. There can be discussion on any spiritual subjects. There can be discussion on our feelings. It could be meditation. It could be chanting. It could do social service. But that I am connecting with a group of people, and that is strengthening my faith in what I am doing. Also, in studying the scriptures, I would say that it's perhaps even more vital to faith to study the lives of the saints, the lives of people who were tested in their faith, and many of whom went through serious social rejection, even death, because of their faith, and to see what a strong faith they had, even though that faith became a serious problem for them in their lives. So this becomes an example. It's one thing to read teachings, for example, of Christ, in which we put Christ in another category and say, well, he was an incarnation. And it's another thing to read about common people who managed in their lives to do great things because of their faith, because we can identify with those common people. And this is, well, if this person, who is a person like me, was born into a family with ignorance, with all of their feelings and situations, was able to sustain this kind of strength, then I can do it too. Also, it's helpful to be in contact with a charismatic spiritual person. That is a person who has the ability perhaps to know our thoughts, perhaps to speak to us about, without our explaining what we are feeling, which radiates a deep amount of love. Perhaps they have the ability to do certain kinds of miracles. Not that these miracles are important, but these miracles are signs that this being has a knowledge and a power over the material world. And so he knows what he's saying. Well, when Christ did his miracles, he did them simply so that people would listen to what he was saying, and for no other reason. So when we're in the presence of a charismatic person, that power inspires us to believe, and when we see miracles inspire us to believe even more. They help us. Also, meditation and the experiences that we have in meditation are very helpful in overcoming doubt, because those experiences become a reality for us. We have experienced that peace. We have experienced that clarity. We have experienced that energy, that light. And see, these are no longer concepts for us. They are realities. Also, prayer helps. Prayer, we can pray for strength, for steadfastness, for faith in our lives. So this is how we can work with doubt. The fourth obstacle to spiritual growth is carelessness, not giving importance to the details of the process. Having too many things in our minds so that we're not careful about how we eat, how we meditate, how we breathe, doing them in a sloppy way, not paying attention to the details of how this system works, or paying too much attention to quantity and not to quality, or the emphasis on results. In the Western world, we are so programmed towards achievement that we carry with us into the spiritual effort the whole psychology of achievement. I want to have spiritual experiences. It doesn't matter that I haven't created the ethical basis or the physical basis or the basis in the nervous system which can sustain this spiritual experience. I want to leave my body. I want to see auras. I want to see the future. I want to have visions. It doesn't matter that I'm going to lose my balance totally when I have these experiences because I have not created the basis to sustain them. It's like trying to build the 7th floor of a building when I haven't even built the foundation. And this is how we are. Everyone wants to pay a lot of money, get this technique, which is going to enlighten them immediately. In the old days, it wasn't that way at all. A student would live with the teacher for 10 or 12 years, just serving, just learning through the various situations that the teacher would create for the student before he even learned meditation. Now if you tell somebody you have to do some kind of analysis, you have to purify yourself to some degree, they don't even want to hear about it. They want to go where they can pay a certain amount of money, just get their mantra and walk away. With no change in lifestyle, no change in the way of eating, no change in the way of communicating. This is not the way it's supposed to be. It's dangerous. And it's not successful, this method of going. It's a careless way of trying to grow spiritually. It's a step-by-step process which needs to be, the building needs to be built brick by brick. And as you remember, the first brick is ethical behavior. Yama. No lies, no stealing, no violence. You remember when we went through all of those, huh? And the second brick is discipline. Tapas, cleaning my body daily, looking at myself, communicating with God. This is the whole basis. Would you find few people in this modern society that are interested in this? If you do a seminar about ethics, about 5 people will show up. If you do a seminar about how to get spiritual powers and see people's auras, 105 will show up. This is the way we are. We're interested in power. We're not interested in purity. We're not interested in love. We're interested in power, you see. Okay, so this is carelessness, okay? Now, what is the result of carelessness? First of all, carelessness in any activity, not only in spiritual activity, is dangerous. If I'm not careless, I'll burn the food. If I'm careless, excuse me, if I'm not careful. If I'm careless, I might hit somebody as I'm driving the car. And if I'm careless, I may create problems for myself and others in my spiritual practices. It can be dangerous to our energy field if we try to employ techniques which we're not ready for yet. Our growth will not be balanced. It will not be. We won't have a stable growth in our growth process, which will be dangerous. But also, we can become obstacles to other people's growth. Not essentially, because every person is responsible for their own reality. But to some degree, when I behave carelessly and do not employ a system as it has been created to employ, and I don't have the results that I could have by following that system, I become an example to other people who say, look at this person has been following this path for 5 years, and look at how he behaves. And so they say, well, this path is not worth anything. And so we serve to discourage people. This is why at some point in our classes here, we began to make writing our analysis mandatory, because people would go through 5 years of the class, not write anything, their behavior would remain the same, and then their relatives would see them, look at this. He's been going to Harmonic Israel 5 years, and look at how he behaves. But these people don't know that this person never meditated. This person never did a written analysis of himself. He is not an example of this system. You see? So we do damage to ourselves, but we also do damage to others. It's better to say, I am not employing this path. Because no one grows simply by coming and listening 3 hours a week to a lecture and not employing any of that in their lives. So this is carelessness. Now what can we do to overcome carelessness? One technique which we have discovered is the conscious work program, which is very similar to karma yoga. And that is that we decide that for this period of time we're going to work consciously. That is, I'm going to be conscious in everything that I do. Which means, of course, if I'm cleaning a place, or if I'm painting something, or if I'm digging in the garden, or if I'm cutting vegetables, that I'm going to be focused on what I am doing. I'm not going to be telling my life history to the person next to me. I'm not going to let my mind wander to the future and to the past, because the moment my mind wanders, I'm not in the present. I'm being careless. I'm not caring about what I'm doing. I'm not focused on what I'm doing. And what we do is we ring a bell every once in a while, so that each person with the ringing of the bell observes, were they focused or were they gone? Were they talking? Were they thinking about something? Were they negative? Were they feeling unity? Were they feeling love? Were they concentrated on what they were doing? So one way is self-observation in activity, and that I observe myself and do what I am doing. So concentrating on what I'm doing. Another help is meditation, because meditation develops concentration. And concentration is the basic asset which allows us to be careful about what we're doing, to be focused on what we are doing. And another aspect of overcoming carelessness is not relaxing the effort. That is, often because of doubt, because of a feeling of disillusionment, not having the results that we want, it's easy to say, I'm not going to do this. It's not important. It's important to keep in our mind the purpose of our lives. One of the main obstacles towards keeping a steady effort is disappointment with the results. And we'll talk about that in a minute. We already discussed the fifth obstacle, mental laziness, with the second, physical laziness. So let's go on to the sixth obstacle, the craving for sensual pleasure or worldly mindedness. It's not only sensual pleasure, it's in general a craving for material experiences. That is a focusing on the external world. So whether that be food or television or talking or anything, or drugs or coffee or cigarettes, whatever it is, it's something which is causing the mind to want to come in contact with the outside world through the senses in some way. So when my spiritual purpose is to experience my inner self, and there is this continual force pulling my mind outward, and there I'm sitting meditating, and then it comes the impulse to talk, the impulse to get up, the impulse to watch television, the impulse to do my work, to get involved in the work that I'm doing. All of these impulses draw the mind out into the physical world. Now, if I am lacking in self-acceptance, and I am lacking in inner security, then this is even going to be a stronger force, because I have to do these things. I have to engage in these activities. Otherwise, I'll be losing my self-worth or my inner security. So what is the cause of this craving? One is the emptiness which we have in us. That is, the personality is not a self-lit being. It's like the moon. The moon doesn't have its own light. And that's why in astrology, the moon is the personality. The sun has its own light. The soul has its own light. You see? So, when we're focused on the personality, we experience an emptiness. We are not full. And we try to fill that emptiness through people, through objects, through activities, through sensual pleasures, so that temporarily I don't feel the emptiness. Temporarily I fill that hole with some kind of sensual input, with some kind of activity. The factor which doesn't help here is that everyone in the environment is doing the same. So it's pretty difficult to disengage ourselves from an activity in which everyone is involved and which is the norm, is the normal. And this is why monasteries were created. Monasteries were created in order to create an environment in which everyone is doing the opposite. In which it's okay to focus on something else but the material world. You're not strange. You're not different. You're not stupid. If you have the encouragement of the group that yes, to focus on the divine, to focus inside of yourself is a worthy cause. Okay? We in Miranunda have tried to create a combination of both. On the one hand, it's a place where you can focus on yourselves. On the other hand, it's a place also in which you can come in contact with other people on another basis. Another factor is that we have learned to evaluate ourselves in terms of our material state. To evaluate ourselves in terms of our material success, the objects that we have, the people that we have around us. In order to sustain our self-worth through all of that, our mind continually goes out to these objects and situations and relationships, and it cannot disassociate itself from them so that we can experience our inner self and experience our inner fulfillment. Only then will the mind stop, when we experience that fulfillment from within. Now, it's not easy. It's a very gradual process, but it is the only solution. Otherwise, we will always be seeking outside of ourselves something which we will never get. We will never, ever be able to fill that hole with something outside of ourselves. We can do it for 5 minutes, we can do it for 5 months, we can do it for 5 years, if we're lucky. But the emptiness will come up again. We were born alone, we're going to die alone, and everything else that we relate to in that process is a very temporary solution. It is not solving the problem permanently, which is our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with the divine. But that does not mean we have to leave other people. I can relate to the divine in the other, rather than relate to the personality in the other. You see? It does not mean going off into a cave. Now, what is the result? The result is that all our energy is directed outward. There's not much energy, time, or mental capacity for focusing inwardly. And so meditation is pretty much out. There is an emphasis on the superficial, and the more emphasis we give to the superficial, the more possibility that we won't be satisfied, and the more possibility that we will come in conflict with others. Because the more needs I have, the greater the possibility that others will act in a way which don't satisfy my needs, which means the greater the possibility that I will come in conflict with these people. Whereas a person with less needs simply has less conflicts with the people around him because he doesn't have so many prerequisites. He doesn't demand so much from these people. But the problem is that this way of seeing things also we take into our spiritual life. And so, whereas previously we were measuring our self-worth and our satisfaction by how much money we had, or how many objects we have, or how much clothing we have, now we are measuring it in how many hours of meditation we do in comparison to other people, how many books we have read, how many teachers we have heard, how many good actions we have made in that day. And so now we're just playing the same game with the spiritual ego. Nothing has changed. We're just involved in seeing things externally, trying to get our self-worth externally. What can we do about this tendency of the mind to seek fulfillment through the outside world? One basic solution given by Patanjali is tapas. It is specifically setting a period of time in which we are not going to satisfy a particular desire. For example, now during the 40 days of Lent, here in Greece, the choice is I will not eat meat, I will not eat any kind of animal products, no milk, no cheese, no yogurt, even no oil. Okay, this is a choice that I make. I'm developing clarity. And every religion has these days in which people fast. So this is not by chance. It's not that God's going to love me more because I did this. And it's not that I'm going to go to hell if I don't do it. You have to get free from this kind of thinking. I will be freer from the real cause of my imprisonment, which is my needs and my desires. No one limits me. My own desires limit me. I am imprisoned in my desires. I am imprisoned in my fears. I am imprisoned in my attachments. I am imprisoned in my ignorance. No one else limits me in life. I limit myself. For this purpose, it is especially beneficial to do occasional retreats. Just take 1 minute now so we can change the cassette. Is it both of them? Do it anyway. Okay, the retreating occasionally gives us the opportunity to experience ourselves without external sources of happiness. And it is a wonderful experience to see how we can feel full by ourselves, without TV, without people, without telephone, without newspapers, without work. That is how there is a fullness within us. I think every person needs to experience this, not as a way of life, but as an experience for about a week each year or even more, that each person should have the opportunity to be by themselves and experience that inner strength and that inner clarity. What do I believe? What do I want from my life? What makes me happy? And then, of course, also the sense of being full and happy without anyone and without anything. That allows us, when we go back into our daily life, to be givers rather than takers. Because I know now that I will be okay if I don't have the other person. And so I am in a position now to give. I don't really care how much I'm going to take back or not, because I know I have my own source. I've experienced my own source, that I am okay even alone. I don't choose to be alone, but it's one thing to have to be with somebody, because I can't stand the possibility of not being, and the other thing is to choose to be with somebody. It's a totally different motive. To have to be or to choose to be. As before also, contact with people, with satsang, with people who are not so worldly minded, gives us strength in continuing in this path. But something else that helps us, experience itself. Experience itself, life itself. How many things did we want? How many things did I desire in my life? And I managed to get just about all of them. And then they became meaningless. It is this whole idea that, oh, if I have this, my life is just going to be wonderful. And then getting this, and then seeing that the emptiness is still there. This is not it. This is fine, this is great, but this is not it. This is not what's going to complete the picture in me. And so the very experience of life, of having obtained so many things and satisfied so many desires, allows us to realize by experience and not by philosophy that things outside of ourselves cannot fulfill us. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't have things. We can enjoy things. In fact, the only way I can really enjoy someone or enjoy something is by not needing it. Because the moment I need it, then I'm afraid of losing it. And I get uptight about it. So the only way to really enjoy someone or something is to know that I can be okay even if I don't have it. And then I can really enjoy it. This is wonderful. But if I'm constantly, well, maybe this person will leave, or maybe I will lose this, or maybe I'll lose that, then I can't enjoy it. I destroy the whole experience. The next obstacle, according to Patanjali, is false perception, taking things for what they are not, misinterpreting events and people, and I would say mostly we misinterpret people's motives. When people talk to me about the motives of others, they give me the impression that these people think that everyone else around them has nothing else to do but to think about what they're going to do to harm this person, as if this person is the center of the other people's lives. I mean, we always think, well, this person did this to hurt me, and this person didn't do that to hurt me. I doubt it very much. I doubt very much that people sit around thinking what they're going to do to hurt somebody else. They just do what they need to do to fulfill their needs. If I allow that to hurt me, that's another thing. They are trying to fulfill their needs. They're not saying, I'm going to do this to hurt that person. They say, I'm going to do this because this fulfills my need. You understand the difference? There's a great difference here. So this is a misinterpretation of the motive of the other person. Now we have experienced, how many times have you all experienced people misinterpreting your motives? Misinterpreting what you have said, misinterpreting what you're thinking, misinterpreting why you did something. So as many times as we have experienced that from other people, others have experienced that from us. This whole idea of misinterpretation. So what is the result of false perception? Of course, there's another kind of false perception, before we go on to that, in the spiritual life. And that is the tendency of some people to give importance to some kinds of visions, or numbers, or signs, or phenomena, to put them all into one word, on the spiritual or astral level, which sidetracks them from the ultimate goal of transcending even the astral level. So they get involved with, well, I saw this vision and that means this, or this person's name has this number and that means that, and I had this dream and I have to do this and this, and they sometimes can get away from reality, get totally lost. It's possible for people in the spiritual path to get totally lost in these kinds of phenomena, rather than the real purpose of spiritual growth, which is the transcendence of all phenomena. Because all phenomena, to some degree, is subjective. All phenomena, to some degree, is a product of our programming. It's very, very few people, 1 in a million, who would have spiritual experiences which are not in some way a reflection of their own psyche. You understand what I mean? So this is another kind of false perception which can obstruct our spiritual growth. It is getting involved in experiences, spiritual experiences. What happens when we make these false perceptions, either about the physical world or the emotional world or the spiritual world? Well, first of all, we come to wrong conclusions. We think that this vision means that I have to go kill somebody, or I have to leave my family, or I have to do this, and it doesn't mean that. Okay? And if we come to wrong conclusions, then we make wrong decisions. And making wrong decisions, we create problems for ourselves and for others. We think we're being guided in some way in which we are not actually being guided. Okay? So what is the solution for false perception? First of all, is the study of the self, the study of the personality, which has the tendency to distort perception, and the study of the higher self, which is beyond all of these interpretations. So on one hand, I study the personality so as to get free from the programmings of the personality. On the other hand, I try to identify with the higher self and not be so lost in these perceptions. Secondly, we have the scriptures of the various religions as a guide. So I should pass any of my perceptions through the teachings of the various scriptures. Thirdly, we need to develop discrimination. I mean, when someone comes and they are told that if you take this seminar and pay this amount of money, and we do this ritual on you, we give our energy to you, that your life will radically change. If it was true, why wouldn't Christ or every other very high spiritual being do this? And just say, I heal all people. How could someone's spiritual evolution depend on how much money they have? And whether they're able to pay for an initiation or pay for a seminar. How could my spiritual evolution be dependent on what you're going to do for me? This is like the old days in which people used to pay the Catholic Church for the remission of sins. It's okay, these sins will be dissolved if you pay this amount of money to the church. Is this possible? This whole idea, this whole lack of discrimination that my spiritual growth process or my relationship with God can be controlled by someone else, and especially controlled by my economic situation, which means that all the poor people on the planet have no possibility of enlightenment or of spiritual growth. I mean, we lack discrimination. Every time I hear of these so-called heresies here in Greece, these cults, committing suicide together, committing acts of violence. Yesterday, 500 people committed suicide together in Africa, in a church, a Christian church. When I hear these things, these people have no minds. They hear something and they believe it. There is no discrimination. There is no frame of reference within themselves which they can look to and say, this is true or not true. Have we lost all sense of inner guidance, that we will follow someone who says, these are our enemies, go kill them, or let's kill ourselves? So it's very important that we develop discrimination. We develop our own clarity, our own thinking processes, so that we avoid these kinds of misconceptions. Okay, the leader had this misconception, this misperception. The world's going to end for him. Let the world end for him, not for me. At some point I have to be clear about what I think. I have to be the last word about what's going to happen in my life, not what my teacher says. If I ever say anything to you which you cannot accept, reject it immediately. Don't accept anything. You have to be the last word in your own mind. Also, what is helpful in this case is satsang, or having a teacher who can help me see myself. Sometimes when we can't see ourselves, what do we need? We need a mirror. Okay? Now, traditionally, the mirror is the teacher. But today there is a lack of enlightened teachers. Most people that are teaching today, and I put myself in that group, are still evolving, still trying to free themselves from their own subjectivity. They may be more objective than others that are listening to them, but they're not totally enlightened. So in some cases, the teacher can be a mirror, but also anyone else can be a mirror. Any people that I discuss things with, but especially a spiritual group, the satsang, if I'm sharing my perceptions with them, I may get some feedback which will help me to see some of my misperceptions. And the last obstacle, according to Patanjali, is despair because of failure to achieve a state or goal. This usually happens after about the first 2 or 3 years of the spiritual process, because in the beginning, the way nature has it, we usually have some successes. You know, we start meditating and we start having some nice experiences, or things change for the positive. But then, after a few years, suddenly we find that maybe we took a few steps backward, okay? Or maybe we thought we had overcome a certain habit or a certain feeling, and then we see it appearing again. We thought we had overcome a certain fear or a certain tendency, and then we become very despaired, disappointed, and we give up the effort. This is a very crucial point in the spiritual process. And this is where a lot of people lose it. Because they say, since I tried for 3 years, and I still have this fear, or I still have this habit, or I still have this desire, or whatever it is, it's not worth it. It's not working. It's not true. Either because the whole thing is an illusion, or because the method I'm employing is an illusion, or because I am not able to do it. I am a failure. One of the three. The result of this is that we become discouraged, we lose faith, and we give up the effort. We might develop a negative self-image of ourselves as a failure, in this case. It might very likely causes us to direct our energy in other directions, and maybe even have an aversion to the whole process. Let's feel an aversion to, because every time we think about the process, we are reminded of our supposed, in quotation marks, failure, and so we don't even want to think about it, and so we give up the whole idea. And also, it leads to another kind of result, and that is what we call in spiritual terms the well digging. That is, a person goes to one school for a few months, becomes very enthusiastic, and then they don't see results, so they do then to go to another school, they employ another system, they don't get results, and they go to another school, and each time they go they become very gung-ho enthusiastic, and then in 3 months they disappear. Sai Baba tells a story about this, in which he says, well, this person, in a total, he dug 5 meters here, he dug 5 meters there, he dug 5 meters there. If he had dug 15 meters in the original place, he would have found the water. You see? So the whole thing is I keep changing techniques, I keep changing systems. All systems work, all techniques work. The whole thing is to have the steadiness to continue employing them for a long period of time so that I start getting the results. So what can we do? We can first of all develop the 2 P's, well, actually the 3 P's. Patience, perseverance, and practice. I need to continue practicing. I need to practice with perseverance. I need to have patience about the results. What will help me have patience? We need to understand the nature of the samskara, the nature of the tendencies. The tendencies which control our lives have been developed over millions of years. Millions of years. We can't expect with 5 years of meditation or even 30 years of meditation to have dissolved all of our samskaras. Some are like ripe fruit ready to fall. And they will fall easily. Some things will change very quickly. Other things may take lifetimes to change. You see? So I need to have patience. I need to understand time in a different way. There is a simulation which was given in a book. If you take creation from the Big Bang until this moment, and you put that into 1 year, and said 1 year has passed from the Big Bang, from the start of creation until this moment, then Christ arrives on the scene at about noon on December 31st of that year. So 99% of creation has already passed. Okay? And this modern civilization that we live in at this moment has started about 10 seconds before midnight. That is, it took 200 million years for plants to evolve into animals, and about another 200 million years for animals to evolve into humans. So we are very new on the scene. So we have to understand that this next step in our evolutionary process is a long process. We have to understand that we should not become discouraged by failure or by weaknesses which again show up. It's very natural at the moment that these tendencies have been developed over so many millions of years are in the core of our being. They can, however, be changed, and people before us have liberated themselves from that. The liberation can take place, and it's our purpose in life. It's not only the purpose in our life, it's not only this spiritual purpose, this high ideal, it's the only way to be happy. We will never have happiness as long as we are identified with this body. We will never have happiness as long as we are identifying our self-worth and our security with people and things outside of ourselves. It's very practical. Whatever is spiritual is also extremely practical. And the last, I think I said last for the earlier one, but this is the last, instability. That is, we make a spasmodic effort. You know, we do meditation an hour a day for 1 month, and then we give it up, and then we start fasting, and then we start feasting, and then so we're not going to have sex ever again, and then we have sex daily. It is, we're very irregular in the way that we approach the spiritual process. Now, what happened? What is the result of this? First of all, there's very little progress. Secondly, we create guilt because one part of ourselves is seeking a certain goal, and another part keeps undermining that process. You see? So, I'm playing the parent and the child. I'm saying, I want to do this, I must do this discipline, and the other part the child comes up and says, I don't want to do this discipline. I want to eat whatever I want to eat, and I want to wake up whenever I want to wake up, and I don't want to meditate. I find it boring. And so we have this inner conflict, and usually this kind of process is created when someone does spiritual practice because they must, out of I should do kind of psychology, from the inner child, that is, I should do this. The should do is never a good reason to employ spiritual practices, and it's never a good reason to do good work, to help people. I want to do, I like to do, I enjoy doing, I see that it's beneficial to do, is totally different than I should do. Because when I function out of the should for a long period of time, that's going to create a suppression, and at some point I'm going to react. So to see, why do I want to meditate? I find that it makes me peaceful. I have greater clarity. I am more loving. I am more creative. I have greater health. It's nothing I should do. It's like asking, why should I eat? Why should I sleep? So meditation and spiritual practice needs to become in our lives like sleeping and eating, something which I enjoy. I mean, I look forward to the hour which, oh my God, how wonderful it's going to be to get home and sit with my eyes closed and go into myself and experience this inner state. Not, oh my God, I have to meditate now. You see, it's very important that the motive for doing this be like this. So, Patanjali mentions these 9 obstacles. Now let's see what he says below, so we can complete today's discussion. In the first chapter, the 32nd and 33rd Sutra. For removing these obstacles, there should be the constant practice of one truth or principle. That is, constant practice means meditating on a truth or principle, or bringing it into the mind continually throughout the day. That in addition to all of the techniques and suggestions that I have made to you about overcoming the obstacles, Patanjali gives one basic answer. Focus on one thing. Focus on, for example, the goal. I'm focused on the transformation of my character. I'm focused on theosis. I'm focused on manifesting my divine being, my divine potential in the material level. Or on one principle. I want to develop love, peace, non-violence, or dharma. Or on one truth. I am spirit. All is an expression of the divine. So he gives this technique. Just take one truth or one principle and make this your foundation. Now, it could be that you would change every 2 or 3 months, every 6 months, the principle. That's okay. But that I know what my principle is for this month, what my goal is, and that I'm focused on it. By being focused and having clarity about the principle, the truth, or the goal, this will help me to overcome these obstacles. Okay, so next week we will continue. Let us meditate now, and then we can discuss any questions that you may have afterwards. So if you want to take a straight sitting position, with your eyes closed. Be sure that your position is straight and comfortable. Focus on your breathing. Breathe slowly, peacefully. ready, you can begin the alternate breathing with your right arm, your right hand, alternating nostrils. Inhaling into the solar plexus, holding in the heart center. Exhaling up through the neck and holding suspension in the forehead. Breathe slowly, peacefully. Now you may allow your breathing to continue naturally. Ensure that your body is in a straight and relaxed position. Allow the muscles of your legs to be relaxed. Allow your abdominal muscles to relax. Allow the solar plexus to relax. Feel your shoulders. Allow them to come back and down in a relaxed way. Feel the muscles of your face. Allow your cheeks to relax. Allow your eyes to relax. take a few moments to communicate with the Divine in a natural, sincere way, expressing whatever is vital, whatever is important to you. Now focus on the inner light, the divine light in your forehead. Allow that light to expand to permeate the cells of your brain, allow the light to permeate your mind, and allow the light to continue to expand, filling all of your being, and then continue with your chosen method of concentration, of connecting with the Divine.